Liverpool is a city that for decades has been known for its history, culture, and the important role it has played in the United Kingdom. But in 2026, many residents say that the city faces a reality that is very different from the image presented to tourists. What was once one of the largest commercial and port centres in the world now faces a series of challenges that continue to affect the lives of thousands of people. The cost of living has increased, rental prices are putting more and more pressure on residents, and finding stable housing has become a challenge for many families and young people trying to build a life in the city. At the same time, some areas face visible problems such as closed shops, parts of the city centre that appear to be losing activity, a growing homeless population, and a feeling of neglect in certain neighbourhoods. Liverpool also carries the consequences of decades of economic changes. The decline of the port industry has left deep marks on some communities, where problems such as poverty, lack of opportunities, and inequality remain present. Although the city has managed to reinvent itself through tourism, culture, and new investments, many residents say that this recovery has not reached everyone. Public safety has also become a growing concern. Violent crimes, knife attacks, and conflicts involving young people and criminal groups continue to be topics discussed among residents and authorities. For some communities, these problems represent a daily reality that contrasts with the image of modern and tourist-friendly Liverpool. There is also another less discussed issue. Even in a city known for its cultural life, bars, universities, and events, many people report difficulties in creating real connections, finding stable relationships, and escaping the loneliness that is growing in modern cities. So how did Liverpool reach this point? How did a city that was once one of the most important in the world manage to transform itself while still facing problems that remain hidden behind its international reputation? In this documentary, we will explore the challenges behind Liverpool's image and reveal the darker side that many visitors never get to see about one of England's most famous cities. In recent years, knife-related violence has become one of the biggest public safety concerns in Liverpool and across the wider Merseyside region. Although the city is not one of the most violent in the United Kingdom compared to some larger urban centres, crimes involving knives continue to be a frequent problem, especially in certain communities where young people become involved in conflicts that can end with fatal consequences. The so-called knife crime has become a national issue in the United Kingdom, where knife attacks have, in many cases, replaced the type of violence involving firearms that is more commonly seen in other countries. In Liverpool, many cases are connected to fights between rival groups, territorial disputes, and conflicts linked to drug trafficking. Small disagreements can quickly turn into serious attacks when a knife is involved. One of the biggest concerns for authorities is the involvement of teenagers and young adults in this type of violence. Some young people, growing up in areas with high levels of poverty and limited opportunities, end up being attracted to criminal groups that offer money, protection, or a sense of belonging. For these groups, carrying a knife is often seen as a form of protection, but it ultimately increases the risk of violent confrontations. The Merseyside region also has a history of problems related to organised crime and drug trafficking. Local gangs compete for control of illegal markets, especially the trade of cocaine and other drugs, creating conflicts that can result in attacks between rival groups. Police say that many knife-related incidents are connected to these disputes and the increase in violence between criminals. Another factor highlighted by experts is the combination of social inequality, lack of future prospects, and family problems. Some areas of Liverpool have faced economic difficulties for decades, and young people growing up in these environments may have greater exposure to violence from an early age. The lack of social investment, youth activities, and professional opportunities is often mentioned as one of the factors that continues to fuel this cycle. In recent years, Merseyside police have carried out several operations to remove weapons from the streets, combat gangs, and arrest individuals involved in violent crimes. However, many experts argue that increasing police presence alone is not enough to solve the problem. According to them, tackling knife culture also requires investment in education, prevention, and the creation of opportunities for young people. Loneliness and the difficulty of building stable relationships have also become increasingly discussed topics among residents of Liverpool, following a trend seen in many major cities across the United Kingdom. Even though it is a city with a young population, universities, bars, cultural events, and a lively social scene, many people report that creating deep connections and finding partners interested in long-term relationships has become more difficult. One of the factors often mentioned is the pace of modern life. For many residents, especially young adults, the combination of long working hours, financial pressure, and rising living costs has reduced the time available to meet new people naturally. Daily life has become more focused on work, education, and financial survival, causing many encounters to happen mainly through the internet, rather than traditional social environments. Dating apps have also changed the way people meet in Liverpool. Digital platforms have made it easier to connect with thousands of people, but many users report difficulties with relationships that feel more superficial, a lack of commitment, and the feeling that there are many options but few truly meaningful connections. Some people argue that having too many choices has made it harder to develop lasting bonds. Another frequently discussed issue is the change in expectations surrounding relationships. Many residents look for partners who share similar goals, have emotional stability, and are prepared to build a life together. However, with rising housing costs and the economic difficulties faced by many young people, some believe that achieving this stability before entering a serious relationship has become more complicated. The city's economic situation also influences romantic relationships. Liverpool has a significant young population, but many people face challenges related to wages, temporary jobs, and financial insecurity. For some, the pressure of building a stable career and covering their own expenses ends up delaying plans such as marriage or starting a family. The city's cultural diversity also influences relationship dynamics. Liverpool has communities with different backgrounds, family values, and expectations regarding dating and marriage. This diversity can enrich the city's social life, but it can also make the search for someone with similar values and future goals more complex. In addition, the increase in the number of people living alone is a trend seen in many British cities, including Liverpool. Many people are able to build financial independence and their own careers, but some report that despite this independence, they still struggle to find deep emotional connections and stable relationships. Homelessness has become one of the most visible social problems in Liverpool in recent years. The increase in people living on the streets, sleeping in public areas, or relying on temporary shelters has raised concerns among residents, business owners, and social organisations, who point to growing difficulties in dealing with the city's housing crisis. One of the main factors behind this problem is the combination of rising living costs and the difficulty of finding affordable housing. Like many other cities in the United Kingdom, Liverpool faces increasing pressure on its housing market, with rising rental prices and a limited supply of available homes for people on lower incomes. For many residents, especially those already facing financial difficulties, maintaining stable housing has become increasingly challenging. The situation is even more complicated for people dealing with additional issues such as substance addiction, mental health problems, unemployment, or a lack of family support. Many of these individuals end up trapped in a difficult cycle to break. Without stable housing, it becomes harder to find employment, access healthcare services, and rebuild a secure life. Liverpool city centre is one of the areas where this issue has become most visible. Residents report frequently seeing people sleeping on the streets, especially near commercial areas and places with high pedestrian traffic. For some business owners, this situation affects the perception of safety and creates daily challenges for those working in these areas. Support organisations argue that the problem cannot be solved simply by removing people from the streets, because homelessness is often the result of deeper social issues. According to these organisations, more investment is needed in social housing, addiction treatment, psychological support, and reintegration programs. Another challenge is the growth of what is known as housing insecurity, where people are not necessarily sleeping on the streets, but are living in unstable situations, such as temporary accommodation overcrowded homes, or facing the risk of losing their housing due to financial difficulties. This reality often remains hidden, but it affects thousands of families. Public transportation is one of the areas that generates the most complaints among Liverpool residents, especially regarding the trains used daily for work, education, and travel across the region. Although the city has an important railway network, many passengers report problems related to service reliability, frequent delays, cancellations, and limited capacity during certain times of the day. Liverpool's railway system, operated mainly by the Merseyrail network, is considered essential for thousands of people who depend on trains to travel within the city and to nearby areas. However, many users complain that the services do not always operate as they should. Unexpected delays and cancellations can create difficulties for workers who need to arrive at their jobs on time, and for students who rely on a predictable schedule. One of the main problems pointed out by residents is the lack of complete modernisation of the infrastructure. Parts of Liverpool's railway network rely on older structures, and some passengers argue that the system requires more investment to keep up with population growth and increasing demand for public transportation. Technical problems, maintenance work on the lines, and operational failures can cause disruptions that affect thousands of people at the same time. Overcrowding is also a common complaint, especially during rush hours, when workers travel in the morning and return home at the end of the day. On some routes, passengers report crowded carriages and difficulty finding space, making journeys that are already long even more uncomfortable. Ticket prices are also a subject of debate. With the rising cost of living in the United Kingdom, many residents question whether the amount they pay for transportation matches the quality and frequency of the services provided. For people who use trains every day, monthly expenses can represent a significant portion of their budget, especially for workers who need to travel long distances. Another point of criticism is the connection between different areas. While some regions have relatively easy access to Liverpool city centre, residents from more distant areas report difficulties reaching certain locations, especially when they need to combine different forms of transportation. This lack of efficient integration can increase travel times and limit access to jobs and opportunities. In recent years, some Liverpool residents have become increasingly concerned about the condition of the city centre, describing certain areas as tired, with signs of decline and a feeling of lost energy that contrasts with the image of regeneration that Liverpool has tried to build over the past decades. One of the main complaints is the increase in empty shops and abandoned commercial spaces in some central areas. Like many British cities, Liverpool has been affected by changes in consumer behaviour, with more people shopping online and fewer customers visiting traditional stores. As a result, many businesses have closed, leaving some streets looking less active, especially outside the main tourist areas. Residents also point to problems related to urban maintenance, such as older buildings needing renovation, public spaces that appear to receive less attention, and a feeling that some investments have been concentrated only in certain areas while other parts of the city centre have been left behind. One of the biggest criticisms is that despite Liverpool receiving major urban renewal projects, including the transformation of areas near the waterfront and tourist zones, not all neighbourhoods have experienced the same benefits. While places such as Albert Dock and Liverpool 1 continue to attract visitors, some traditional shopping streets struggle to regain the level of activity they had decades ago. One of the deepest problems in Liverpool is related to inequalities in public health. Although the city has gone through major economic and urban changes in recent decades, some communities still have much worse health outcomes compared to wealthier areas of the United Kingdom. The contrast between different neighbourhoods reveals a reality where the place where a person is born and lives can directly influence their quality of life and life expectancy. Liverpool has some of the biggest health inequalities within England itself. In certain poorer areas, residents face higher rates of serious illnesses, lifestyle-related health problems, and lower life expectancy compared to wealthier neighbourhoods. This difference is not only caused by access to healthcare services, but mainly by the social conditions surrounding these communities. Among the main problems are high rates of cardiovascular diseases, obesity, diabetes, and respiratory conditions. Many of these cases are linked to factors such as poor diet, limited access to physical activities, inadequate housing conditions, and financial difficulties that leave some families with fewer options to maintain healthy lifestyles. Another issue that attracts attention in Liverpool is the impact of excessive alcohol consumption. The Merseyside region has historically experienced high levels of alcohol-related problems, including liver disease, hospital admissions, and deaths associated with alcohol abuse. Experts point out that this issue is connected to a combination of social factors, including poverty, isolation, and economic difficulties. Mental health has also become an important concern. Some communities experience high levels of anxiety, depression, and other psychological problems, especially in areas affected by unemployment, low income, and a lack of opportunities. The demand for mental health services has increased in recent years, while public systems face difficulties in providing support to everyone who needs it. Local authorities have attempted to reduce these inequalities through prevention programs, improvements in healthcare services, and initiatives focused on vulnerable communities. However, experts argue that solving the problem requires more than medical investment. It is necessary to address the social causes that influence health, such as poverty, education, employment, and housing quality. And the video ends here. Which of these secrets did you find the most surprising? Please share your thoughts about the dark side of Liverpool in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now, and I'm sure you will enjoy the content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.